So I saw Black Widow, and instead of seeing it at the theater, me and a group of friends decided to pool our resources and pay the ridiculous $30 to see one movie, uh, which ended up being a good deal for all of us. I kind of regret doing that though, because 5 minutes into the movie I was thinking, when is everyone going to shut up? Then I realized they're not, so embrace the chaos. I just started joining in on all of the ribbing and jokes and whatnot, and so basically we all just talked through the entire movie. Thankfully, subtitles were on. I was adamantly against subtitles because I live with some people hard of hearing, and I was hoping no subtitles. I'm glad I lost out on that vote because they clearly saw the writing on the wall and knew that they were going to be talking. So I did get most of this movie through the subtitles. So, fun time. Didn't really hear much of it though, but I'm rambling. I should probably get into it now.
I'm done running.
Okay, so, anyway, I did in fact see Black Widow. I was able to hear part of it. I was just messing around. But, yeah, so part of me was really excited to see this movie. Another part of me was really hesitant because ever since Endgame, MCU has been kind of crappy lately. There have been good moments throughout, but especially with like the last two things I saw, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, both, even that was still ultimately a little disappointing. So, I was hesitant about this film. And this movie, finally, we were getting a Black Widow movie that follows Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, after the events of Captain America Civil War. And she's on the run from, well, the global government, goes into hiding, and her past kind of comes back into her life, and she kind of has to deal with that, facing her past and whatnot. I'm trying to keep it as thin as possible so I don't ruin anything for you. Overall, I really liked the story setup, the general premise, because one of the things I really liked about the premise was the fact that it was much smaller in scale than other MCU films. So case in point, like almost every MCU film deals with saving the world, okay? And like one of the biggest criticisms to probably one of my my favorite MCU films, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, was why didn't he call any of the Avengers? You know, and thankfully there was a good reason in this. She's on the run from the government, so she can't call anyone because she's on the run. So it's just her. And I like that. I also like the smaller scale and story because, going back to what I was saying, they almost all deal with, you know, saving the world, saving the earth. And this one didn't deal with that. It was more of a geopolitical thriller. You know, if she failed, the world was still going to be here. And I was strangely pleased by that. It's like, we need to see more of that from all of the MCU characters. I'm not saying never do the save the earth again, but there was a period in the MCU, it was just getting like, okay, this movie, save the earth. This movie, save the earth. This movie, save the galaxy. This movie, save the earth. And so, you know, kind of give us a little bit more variation. And they did with this one, so I really liked that. One issue, though, and this actually hurts the movie, was the fact that this was released now. This movie, quite frankly, should have been released 10 years ago, after, you know, the Avengers. I mean, you know, you got Hulk movie, Captain America movie, Iron Man movie, you know, Thor movie, but no Hawkeye or Black Widow movie. And so, like, that was weird. It's like, why aren't we getting solo movies for those two? We got solo movies for everyone else. And, like, okay, I can see how someone might make the argument, well, this story wouldn't work 10 years ago. Okay, here's another stupid question, you know, just me, but, why didn't this come out after Captain America Civil War? Why? Why not? Why did this not come out before Captain Marvel? I know Marvel really likes to push Captain Marvel, and I don't hate that character, but quite frankly, if you're asking me which should have a movie first, I would have said Black Widow over Captain Marvel, because, you know, Black Widow was here first. And the fact that she's just getting her own solo movie now kind of hurts the movie, because, like, the entire time I'm watching the movie, it's just like, oh no, she's getting beaten up. I mean, I know she doesn't die in this because it's a prequel. Which, again, why didn't you release this when it was set in the timeline? Like, after Captain America Civil War, that would have been a good time to release this. You know? But I did like the overall premise. And, like, something that really took me by surprise, I like, did not see this coming, but in the Avengers, when Black Widow is having the conversation with Loki, and he starts criticizing her for trying to redeem her past, because he's saying, like, you have so much blood on your hands, and then he says Dreykov's daughter. I assumed that he was calling her Dreykov's daughter. You know, like, he would say Odin's son to Thor, you know. But no, apparently Dreykov's daughter is actually a reference to a actual guy's daughter that she had, I don't want to say involvement with, but she actually interacted with during the events of Budapest. And, like, back when I saw the Avengers, I just assumed he was calling her Dreykov's daughter. But no, apparently he was referring to that incident, which this movie actually focuses quite a bit on Budapest. Or Budapest. And it actually was kind of surprising. Like, even with all the trailers, I was not expecting him to actually get into what happened during Budapest in this film. And I really liked that. I was expecting it to be a little bit more explosive, which is funny if you've seen this movie, because it does involve explosions, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more like what we saw in Avengers, simply because this is a lot like Budapest. And Hawkeye goes, you and I have a different recollection of, you know, that event. But I'm really glad they actually took a look at what happened during that time. And so that was cool. But overall, the movie, I have to say, was kind of disappointing, because not of any one thing specifically, but because of all these little tiny things that kind of just add up. Apart from one thing, which I'll get to in a minute, everything was okay by itself, but, like, just combined together made the film ultimately disappointing. Now, I will not say this is the worst thing in the MCU. Clearly, you know what that is. But it's not the best thing either. And so, admittedly, the acting was really good. I was perfectly fine with most of the acting in this film, and there was some generally funny moments, especially from the character of Yelena. She's kind of like her blonde stepsister that's introduced in this film. One of my favorite writing bits is, like, how she has these, like, near-death experiences, and she goes, that'd actually be a really cool death. And then she has something else like, yeah, that wouldn't be so cool with that. It's like, I actually thought that was really funny. Thankfully, Yelena, for any of you who don't know, she's going to be the new Black Widow. There was a blonde Black Widow in the comic books, and she's going to be the new one. I was really concerned that they were going to, like, force her into the movie and really just kind of, like, this isn't really a Natasha Romanoff Black Widow movie, this is more of just a stepping stool for her to become the new Black Widow, and we just discard Natasha. Thankfully, that wasn't quite the case. A little bit, but not quite the case. And I felt that Yelena, if I'm getting her name wrong, I apologize, was a pretty good addition to the MCU. I'm looking forward to seeing her in the Black Widow uniform. I'm looking forward to seeing her in the Avengers, whenever they do that again. And so I did like the actress and the character of Yelena. And another great thing was the fight choreography. The fight choreography was really top notch. It should be for a movie like this. You're dealing with spies, you're not really dealing with a lot of superpowers, and so if you're doing something like Captain America films where he doesn't really have a lot of superpowers that are visually striking, he just has like super strength and super speed. And so with a movie like Captain America, they had to get the choreography down pretty tightly. And again, with Black Widow, they had to focus on choreography more than fancy superpowers. And the choreography is really great when they let you see it. There is one fight, really disappointing in it. I was looking forward to this fight, and it kind of was an unmemorable fight. And that fight was the Red Guardian versus Taskmaster. I'll get in a little bit more on that a little bit. Yeah, but so I did like the espionage setting. It was kind of a nice break from all of the fantastical elements of the MCU. One thing I was a little disappointed in, I can't really hold against the movie, but like all the movie posters have William Hurt's General Ross or Secretary Ross on the poster. I mean, unless it's a solo poster of Scarlett Johansson, like they all have General Ross on. And General Ross is in the movie for exactly, give me a second. Carry the 45 seconds. Yeah. It really glorified cameo that I thought they were going to do more with. But literally, he's like barely... He's not even in the movie for more than a minute, if we even get that. So, just find it odd that they put him in so much of the advertising campaign, and he's barely in the movie. Now, one of my biggest disappointments was with the Red Guardian. Now, the Red Guardian, that character, David Harbour, he did a good job. Don't get me wrong. I thought he had some really funny moments. I thought he looked good. I'm looking forward to seeing more with him if we ever do. But the thing that I got disappointed with was the fact that when making this movie, they decided that he was going to be the brunt of everyone's joke. Anytime anyone interacted with him, they were going to basically crack a joke at his expense. And that's fine when you do that with a character. But with this character, they set up such like a flawed type of character. He has such a flawed past, and he's made mistakes. He has a terrible personality, but so many times throughout this movie, it feels like he has a chance to have a moment of real genuine heart and emotion and really connect with his stepdaughters and his ex-wife. And just as it starts veering off to like a really great emotional moment, it just crashes back into him being the brunt of a joke. I mean, they never let him have that moment of true emotion or hurt, except for one time. And that one time is amazing, because it really develops his character. But all these other times that it looked like he was going to have that moment, and it just crashes back to him being the brunt of a joke, it honestly kind of hurt the character to me, because he could have easily been like the heart and soul of this film. Because, I mean, you have this really flawed character, and he starts realizing, you could have had where he starts realizing the error of all of his past deeds and actions and ways, and it's just, no, let's just have him funny the entire time. And it's like, even his fight with Taskmaster, when I saw that in the trailer, it's like, oh, that's going to be such a cool fight. I'm so looking forward to seeing that. And I saw the movie just the other day. I cannot tell you what happens in that fight. It was that forgettable. And like one of the things they do, I hate it when they always do it. So many movies do this. You have a fight where one character is on one and the other character is in the other. They start running, and just as they are about to like throw the first punch, it cuts away to like another character doing something, and then periodically will just jump back into that fight while they're in mid-fight. It's really disappointing, more disappointing than the way I described it, and they do that in this film with Red Guardian and Taskmaster. So, kind of disappointed about that. Speaking of Taskmaster, this was the worst part of the movie. The most unforgivable part, because I was really looking forward to Taskmaster. I had read a couple of comics with Taskmaster, and I was kind of hoping, like, okay, maybe they're going to, like, kind of change him, make him more menacing, maybe not have him so cocky, but, you know, have it where he's a more substantial threat. And if you are at all a fan of Taskmaster, or you're familiar with the character at all, you're going to absolutely hate what this movie does with Taskmaster. I mean, they do just the crappiest job on the character you could possibly imagine. Like, as little development as humanly possible, setting up Taskmaster, and just the dumbest decisions with this character. I really doubt if they're ever going to use this character again, because from what I've been seeing, like, all fans of this character have not liked this, that have, like, gone and seen this movie already. I mean, they just, it really is the worst part of the film. Just the crappiest job you could do on adapting a character from a comic book. I mean, like, no effort whatsoever, and, like, the things they decide to change about the character give the character no additional weight than the character already had from the comic books. I mean, it contributes nothing to the film, and quite frankly, you could have had this film without Taskmaster. If you had removed Taskmaster, you could have just had the rest of the film with the Black Widows, and that be it. And probably the film would have had less negative reception if they had done that. I'm not saying the film's getting a lot of negative reception, but the negative reception it is getting is mostly from Taskmaster. But this leads me to another issue I had with the movie, and it could have been fixed if Taskmaster wasn't in it. And that is, this movie focuses on the Black Widows, okay? Basically, there's not one Black Widow, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of Black Widows that work for the Russian government. And they are these highly trained secret agent assassins that are as effective as Natasha Romanoff was and Hawkeye was. Hawkeye wasn't a Black Widow, but he's integrated into that world. And, like, with the amount of, like, story exposition they put about these Black Widows, we only see them, like, on a two-man foot chase chasing after Natasha and her sister, and then at the very end of the movie when they all start ganging up on Natasha. And that's it. Like, for a story entirely focused on them, you'd think you'd have a couple more of them in it. You know? Crazy idea. And whenever, like, Taskmaster came on the scene, he had these, like, faceless, black helmet henchmen that he used. And, like, they can't aim for shit. They can't hold their own against Natasha or any of her guys. I mean, they're basically, like, bomb tier level henchmen. And it's just, like, could you imagine how freaking intimidating it would have been if Taskmaster showed up and he had, like, just 50 Black Widows with him, and he just, like, points, and they just all charge? It's like, yep, well, we can't win this fight, we should run, because, you know, there are 50 of them that are as highly as trained as your main character, so, yeah, this is not going to be easy. But no, they just decided to have the brunt force of all the fights be with these faceless henchmen that can't fight, can't shoot, and it's like, why did they even hire them? You know, and I understand a lot of superhero movies have these faceless henchmen that can't fight and can't shoot, but when you actually have in the plot a specialized group of almost super soldiers that are like the greatest assassins of all time, and you have hundreds of them, and you don't utilize them, why? You could have used more Black Widows! Seriously, why didn't you use more? Quick note though, I want to give credit where credit's due. I usually go, wait a minute, when, like, case in point, Thor Ragnarok, they have like a multicultural system for like the Asgardians, when in fact the Asgardians probably should just be all a bunch of Norwegians. But with like the Black Widows, there were like multiple like like races with the Black Widows, but they did kind of explain away that, like, to the point it's like, okay, no, that actually makes sense. I'm glad you explained that, and I'm glad you made it so that it wouldn't be jarring to see, you know, a Black Widow or an Asian Black Widow. You know, so I appreciate that when, you know, movies do take the effort to explain stuff like that. But, I mean, like, and another issue I had with the movie was how they addressed the main villain. Basically, the main villain's barely in the movie. They give him no development. They go out of their way to make sure that he does not come off as menacing. And then the way they conclude that villain's story arc is so anticlimactic and unsatisfying. I mean, to the point, it felt like the writers forgot that he was in the movie. At the last second, it's like, oh, shoot, what do we do with this character? Let's just do this. Really? I mean, just like that, we don't want to put any thought or effort into it, you know. I mean, this is the main villain of the movie, you know. Yeah, let's just throw that in, you know, people will be fine with it. I mean, like, in terms of villains, how villains go in the MCU, this probably would be on the very bottom of, like, memorable or intimidating villains you could possibly imagine. I mean, why not have Taskmaster the main villain if you were going to do this? I mean, I already said they shouldn't have done Taskmaster, but, like, if you were going to do Taskmaster, why do you have Black Widow's Taskmaster and then this third-party villain? Like, it would have been a little bit cooler if Taskmaster was the head of the Black Widows instead of this guy. So, I mean, but this leads to probably my final overall criticism, and that is the third act. The third act was... I didn't hate what they wanted to do with the third act, but the way they built the third act together was so messy. It was sloppy. It could have worked, but it didn't work because they were just like jumping all over the place. They didn't connect scenes properly. Maybe if they did better editing with the third act, it wouldn't have been so bad. I didn't mind like the Red Room and the confrontation between Natasha and Dreykov, and I didn't mind most of it. I just wish they handled it better because, I mean, you had the anticlimactic conclusion with Dreykov. You had the very anticlimactic conclusion between Black Widow and Taskmaster. You had the very abrupt conclusion with the Black Widows. I mean, like, the way they ended it, it was just so quick, so abrupt, so messy. And, like, just ultimately, this movie could have served better with another hour of content. And before I get into that, I want to explain something that I did not notice while watching this movie, but someone pointed out to me. This movie has so many plot holes. I cannot believe it. Like, after I watched the movie, I said, yeah, I watched it, it was worth a watch, and the, like, person said, oh, you mean, like, plot holdo? And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, the movie that's just nothing but plot holes. Like, what are you talking about? And, like, it was just explaining to me, like, how did this character get this? How this character know to send this here? How did this one character find this other character? How did this one character know that this other character is going to be here? Why these two characters fight? How did this one character find these characters again? How did this character find this character? Why was this character in this position? Why was this character here? Why was this character trying to kill this character? And, like, just, it kept going on and on and on. I was just like... And, like, all these plot holes that I just never realized. I mean, just... And so, going back to what I said earlier, this movie really could have served with another hour of content just to fill in some of these plot holes. You don't need more action scenes. It had plenty of action in it, and it just needed some of these plot holes fleshed out and the ending to be fleshed out a little bit better. And I mean, come on, it's MCU. You could get away with doing a 4-hour movie. People will still see it. Okay? At least right now. If you keep going the route of Disney Plus, people are going to stop seeing your content. But like right now, you could do a 4-hour movie, a 4-hour espionage thriller with Black Widow in it, and people would see it. Now, admittedly, the pacing was incredible with this movie, but, you know, the plot holes and, like, the movie just felt really constricted together. Like, a lot happens in 2 hours, and it probably should have taken 3 hours to tell the story. And so, overall, I did enjoy this movie. It is not the worst thing Marvel has put out. Not by a long shot. But it's not the best thing either. Now, I will say I liked this better than Captain Marvel. I didn't hate Captain Marvel, but I did like this better because it's dealing with a character that has dealt with loss. In Captain America, all she does is win. She doesn't lose anything. Black Widow has lost quite a bit. And so I felt that, like, some of the fights she lost in this, some of the, you know, objectives she lost, and so it led to a more interesting, you know, dynamic than just winning all the time. So I would say that, yes, this is a fun movie. If you like spy thrillers, if you like, you know, type of espionage stuff, then absolutely you'll have fun with this. It's not the best female spy thriller out there. But it's not the worst either. So it is a fun popcorn film. It does make mistakes, but it's not completely a mistake. And so I'm happy about that. And I would say this is the best Phase 4 project that has come out since Endgame finished. This is better than Spider-Man Far From Home, better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, and better than you know what. So, I would rate it this. Is this worth paying $30 to see at your house? Absolutely no. Is this worth a $5 movie ticket or a $7 movie ticket? Yeah, I'd say it was. So, anyway, that's been my review of Black Widow. My name's Chris with 11th Hour Reviews, and that is all.